Hello, everybody. Obviously, I'm sure nobody's actually watching yet, but happy Halloween. Welcome to my weekly wrap-up stream. If it would focus, thank you. As you can see, I am dressed up for this week's wrap-up video because it's Halloween. Why not? I wasn't invited to go do anything as per usual. Well, it's fine. We here in Australia, we don't really celebrate Halloween like in the US and other countries as well. They're like Singapore, I know, gets really into it. And I'm like, why can't we get really into it here? But so as you may see, today my name is the Witching Hour because that is what I am dressed up as for this Halloween. It's a pun. It's spooky. Hello, Erin. Welcome to the stream. But I wanted something that was easy, in kind of spooky season-y, but also a lame word pun because I'm a lame nerd. And also a costume that I didn't have to buy anything for. I made my hat. I hope you like it. And I had the earrings. I had all of the junky jewelry, just a normal sort of outfit that I already owned, and did my face. And it turned out way better than I expected because for those who know me, you know that I am not a makeup artist in any way, shape, or form. But this week, I didn't read a huge amount of different titles. I also didn't read any novels. Apologies in advance if you were hanging out for particular books that I've been reading. I didn't get a huge amount of reading done this week, mainly because I had other things on my mind, higher priority stuff. But I did notice a trend when I looked back on all of the books, all the manga, in fact, that I read this week. They all had a similar theme, and that is creepy, spooky, horrific stuff. And I promise that was not done on purpose. It just worked out that way. So coincidences be damned. I was very happy with that, actually. Also, because it's Halloween, I know some of the viewers who are going to come in are just waking up. It's the morning for the folks over in the US. But it is not morning for me here. And to make up for all of the many childhood memories I never made during Halloween, I'm going to be eating my own candy here because we never had trick-or-treating. And anytime we did, it was really lame because nobody was prepared to give candy to children asking for candy. So this year I didn't bring a lot of candy because it's literally just me. And I don't want to eat too much on the stream because I need to be talking at the same time. But I have some chocolate. I really like this chocolate. It's dark chocolate with sea salt. I have 2 of those. I have some rainbow sour straps that my sister, she bought a whole big tub of for a party that she went to tonight because she gets invited to Halloween parties. I don't. That's fine. But I asked her for some because, again, I don't eat like a huge amount of these. Hi, Ray. Wow, you're awake. That's really exciting. Thanks for popping in. I hope you're not staying up for too late because I know it is. It's I know your sleep schedule doesn't always allow you to be up so late where you are. I also got these from Daiso here. They're konjac jelly apple flavor, gummy, chewy, yummy things. And my sister's like, why didn't you get the peach ones? It's like, because I only found the apple ones, and the apple ones are also yummy. And I put them in the fridge so they're nice and cool and and jelly-ish. And I also brought wine because I'm allowed to drink on Halloween and it's my stream. But I do have 4 different series to talk about, manga series. I didn't read any comics or novels or anything else, unfortunately, as I mentioned right at the beginning. But I am still pretty happy with what I read, and unlike I think a normal amount of the stuff that I do read for these wrap-up videos, two of the titles, or maybe more of a actual reflection of the stuff I read. Two of the titles that I'm going to be talking about today, I read digitally, both of them through the Shonen Jump app, in fact. And it's written, like me, also never celebrated Halloween. It really isn't a holiday that gets celebrated in too many places outside of the US. And I mean, for me, obviously I live in Australia, and I've lived in Australia for a majority of my life. But Australians, I'm sure, can tell that I do have an accent, an American accent, and I am half American. I was born in the US, and my mother's American. But so I have a lot of, like, I don't know, excitement and stuff passed on to me through family because they're holidays that they celebrate, but we don't celebrate them here. So Halloween is not non-existent. Christmas is really lame here in comparison to the US. Obviously, Thanksgiving isn't a thing we do here, and the other holidays like New Year's isn't really, like, you drink and you like watch the fireworks, but that's not really a fun holiday in the same sense that Halloween and Christmas are. And Easter, I mean, Easter's Easter, but yeah, so I'm grasping my childhood now and becoming the trick-or-treater that I never was in my childhood. So now that we have a couple people watching the stream, I'm doing something different this week actually as well, because I have learnt more things in StreamYard as well. So hopefully this will be a little bit easier for people to follow, maybe, when I'm not, especially because I'm talking about digital titles, so I don't have anything to actually like hold up and show off. So the first thing that I read was a digital title. It was the first 3 chapters of this series. That's all that's available on the Viz Shonen Jump app as of right now, because this is a series that just debuted in print. And so I'm sure once more volumes come out, they will add more chapters, because that's what Viz does. They add their catalog as it's released, if it's not already in the Shonen Jump library. So the first thing that I read, once this stops going fuzzy, was Moriarty the Patriot. So chapters 1 to 3. This is an ongoing shonen manga about Sherlock Holmes's fated rival, Moriarty, Professor William Moriarty. I am a big mystery fan. I grew up reading Sherlock Holmes, but I'm sure a lot of people know Moriarty. This series also has an anime coming out right now, which I haven't watched, so I can't attest to the quality of it. But this series, the first 3 chapters, like, it's not a subtle series. But it's a fun series if you don't mind that your protagonist is morally gray, is perhaps putting it lightly. So William Moriarty, well, actually, so we're introduced to this young boy who introduces himself as William Moriarty, and he's very smart, very educated, very well-spoken, very kind to the lower classes of people, despite being from a very wealthy, to-do family. But we learn that he is, in fact, not William Moriarty, the youngest son of the Moriartys. He is, in fact, an adopted son, an orphan whom the family adopted in under the the encouragement of the older son, who I can't remember his name, James. Maybe I'm getting them confused. I don't remember. Anyway, doesn't matter. But he's like, yes, I don't know. They met in the orphanage, and I think William and his younger brother, who has a heart condition, tries to. I haven't come across that many blondes in the series as of yet, aside from Moriarty and his younger brother, Luca? Louis? Something. Louis, that's what it is. Louis, either or. And they do, I mean, the brothers look the same, and I've seen maybe art for some of the other blonde characters, but I haven't come across them yet in the series, so I can't attest to them. But unfortunately, sometimes that can be the case when we're talking about an artist. They have certain hairstyles that they can do and certain faces that they can do, and they interchange those. But I as of right now, I maybe I'll have that problem. Maybe I won't. I don't know. But so Moriarty, or the fake Moriarty, our main character, he is part of this family, but he hates the nobles, and he sees how like broken this class society is, and how evil the upper classes are when just left to their own devices. And so they hatch, he and his younger brother and their adopted older brother, the oldest Moriarty boy, hatch a plan. They hatch a plan, and in chapter 1 of this shonen mystery crime solving but also crime committing series, they murder the Moriarty family and steal their identities, and it was wild. I was like, oh, that escalated quickly. Needless to say, each chapter so far, with at least 2 and 3, were presented some sort of mystery, some sort of case that the now older young Professor Moriarty is presented, because he's not just a university professor, but he also is a consultant for people, and generally that means that he's fixing problems that the wealthy have inflicted on the lower classes. And in doing so, he fixes the problem, but he normally fixes that problem through murder and extortion. They get away with the perfect crimes, which is why down the line, I'm sure we will see Sherlock Holmes, his nemesis. Hey, Tay, thanks for popping in. I hope you are having a happy Halloween over where you are as well. I know it's still early, so you still have the whole day to celebrate. Yeah, I'm sure we'll see Sherlock Holmes at some point. It was fun. Like, I was wanting to check this series out, so I am really appreciative that Viz has put the series on their app, so I can actually read it and not necessarily have to buy the volumes. If honestly, like, I was hoping to get at least the first volume to try it, but now that I know that we are getting the chapters on the app, I may wait and just read more chapters that way before diving in and like actually buying the volumes, because it's not, as I said, it's not a subtle series. Like the rich, I mean, is true, but the rich are people, the upper class are like cartoonishly evil in the series. I'm like, I mean, that's pretty accurate. I'm not going to say that's not accurate. Hello, Ethan. Welcome to the stream. And I hope you are having a wonderful Halloween wherever you are, whether or not you celebrate it. That makes no difference. It is going to be Halloween here on the stream. Do you like my like bat wings? They're pretty cool. But yes. So yeah, that was that series. I am hoping to try the anime as well at some point. But as to whether I'm going to start watching it now or just wait until it's all oh my gosh, that smells so much like apples. Oh my god, it smells so good. Sorry. But whether or not I'll watch it now or watch it once it's all finished, which is generally what I tend to do, is kind of, well, I mean, that's probably what I'm going to do. I'll get around to watching it at some point. I cannot get over how sweet, how much of like apples they smell like. But yeah, so I'm going to eat this, and then we're going to talk about the next series that I read. Well, the next book that I read, which was a physical book, and a little bit of an unusual one. I talked about it in my pickups video, which I posted yesterday / earlier today, last night, whenever your time zone is. It was past midnight for me, so it technically was today, because I uploaded it and I fell asleep whilst it was uploading, so I know that it was past midnight. But yeah, I will talk about that in just a second. These are really yummy. So the next series, the next thing that I read. Also, for people who've just popped in, my name today is The Witching Hour, because that is what I'm dressed as. It's punny, and it was an easy costume. Maybe not, I don't know, but it was something that I didn't have to buy anything for, so yeah, that it worked out for me. But the next book that I read this week was Cicada Man. So this is one that I got this week. It's a short little anthology, all written by Ryuko Iwabuchi. I talked about this a little bit extensively in my pickups video, but this is a collection of one-shots or short stories by this creator. It's a doujin, like self-published work. It is in English, and how I got this series was, or how I got this book was, it was actually a reward for a Kickstarter that I backed, which was mangaka. What was the name? It was a documentary film about mangaka in Japan and sort of the culture and the industry there. Mangaka, A Sketch of Life in Tokyo, as the bookmark tells you. And so this is a collection of this creator's works. None of them are particularly long. There's 6 in this really short little book. The Cicada Man is the first in the collection. We also have Children of Goodbye, The Wind Shine, Beautiful Boys, Bone is White, The Wolf, and The Tattoo. Children of Goodbye is probably the most difficult. Like it's I don't want to say it's the weirdest of the stories, but it's, if you're gonna dislike a story in this book, it's probably that one for some specific reasons. I mentioned this in my overall, like, talking about it in my pickups video, but it does feature underage sex, androgyny, and like gender assignment. It has the ideas of like genderless angels, so I think Kohaku from Wish, and also teenage pregnancy. It's a weird one, and the mangaka herself admits that like her idea that like spawned the story was she just had a vision of a pregnant teenage boy, and she just like tried to roll with it. So if that gives you any indication, it's yes. Yeah. But a lot of these stories feature death. A lot of them feature like fanaticism. or just like unhealthy obsession, and paired with death as well, and how beauty is reflected in death. The Beautiful Boy's Bone is White was this mangaka's debut work, which is very much about beauty and death and the fleeting nature of youth, and how in death the young and beautiful can stay young and beautiful. There's some direct references. They even they say the names of very famous characters in manga who have died that way, such as Gilbert and Ash. So yeah, again, like there's but the series itself has like quite beautiful art. I'll see if I can. The later stories are the shorter ones. So this is from Beautiful Boy's Bone is White, if it would focus. And it kind of reminds me of, I don't know, a couple different things. But it would be interesting to see. I'm going to put that up there, right? But it'd be interesting to see if this creator ever did any like longer form stories, because I wonder how she would flesh out an idea if she dedicated more than like 20, 30 pages to something. But in saying that, these are quite well-formed stories, despite the fact that they are short. I will say that this is, and I said this in my pickups video as well, it's very obviously a self-published work. It's not in the quality of the writing or the comic, but the translation and the editing is I don't know if the editor and translator were necessarily had English as a first language. And that's not to say that you can't be a translator. You have to have English as your first language to be a translator. But there are some like pretty simple or I don't know, silly mistakes, especially with spelling and that could have been fixed if this was a more professional publication. But at the same time, not sure if this would have gotten published professionally. But it's an interesting little thing. It's a fun little extra. There was a couple different levels of reward you could get, and they were all very different. This was the only tier that got an actual manga or English published manga. There was a tier where you had a different creator do some original art for you. There's another tier that had the Sweat and Soap, which I know a lot of people are a fan of, and I've yet to read, but I'm really wanting to read it. Her manga and signed copies of Volume 1 or Volume 7 or something. I don't know, which would have been really cool. Like, I don't know if a lot of people knew about that. I did share it on Twitter when that was a thing, but when this was trying to get funding on Kickstarter. But if you're a fan of Sweat and Soap, like that would have been a really cool prize to get. But yeah, so this was a interesting little thing. And in relation to, in response to what I said about like the pregnant teenage boy in a dream thing, she very rightly responded with, I think Twilight taught us some dreams should just be dismissed. And yeah, I mean, if I put all of my dreams into the media that I create, they would be wild. And I mean, maybe that's what true creativity is. But sometimes, if we have learned nothing from Clamp aside from this, sometimes the things that your brain comes up with don't necessarily need to be included in your stories because they're just crazy and off the wall, and no one will understand it, not even you, half the time. But yeah, so Cicada Man was interesting. I'd say that the titular story, Cicada Man, is probably the best. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can buy the series or buy the book outside of anywhere, because I think it was just published for the Kickstarter. So it's a weird thing to like try and recommend as well, because I literally do not know where you would be able to get this outside the Kickstarter, which has obviously been finished for months and months and months. But yeah, so I am Ray. I know your proclivities, and I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you, but I also feel like that would be the thing to finally just break me. Just finally, I would stop functioning as a human. So yes, and I feel like Rin has some clamp news for me, because I think these streams have just become infamous for me complaining about clamp, and we know that I don't hate clamp. We know that I don't think that they're bad people or anything, but it's just not for me, and it's very convoluted, and it hurts my brain. Oh yeah, I did see the announcement for Tokyo Babylon anime, and I saw that every person on my Twitter timeline, except for like one person, was so upset. One, because the character designs were not 100% accurate to the clamp character designs, and I'm like, I mean, I get it. Clamp has very beautiful character designs, and all of their characters are noodles. They are very distinctive. But also, I don't know how many of you saw the Holic anime, but Clamp character designs don't very often work as anime because they're just too detailed. They're too beautiful. There's literally no way to put that onto the page, and everyone's like, oh, they ruined everything. And I looked at the comparison, and I was like, maybe I'm just blind, maybe I'm just an idiot, but like I couldn't really tell the difference. I mean, I could tell the difference, but I'm like, if those minimal changes are enough to get you like upset. I mean, the other big thing that people disliked about it was that it's going to be done by Studio Gohans, which, for the uninitiated, everyone brought up Handshakers for some reason, which I mean is a terrible show. I never watched it, but I mean, it's infamous. It's just a complete mess. But like, when I think Gohans, the first series that comes to my mind is K. And whilst I didn't like that series, it is a huge franchise with 1 million movies and 2 seasons. And at the time when it was coming out, everybody enjoyed it, or at least, I don't know, maybe it's just because it was Fujo bait. But like, isn't that then perfect for Tokyo Babylon? I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like and Ray is informing me that the W apostrophe Z was the stealth sequel, which was, I remember the fallout. Everyone's like, oh yeah, let's try this new series, and it's like, no, it's in the Handshakers universe or something. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, I wasn't watching either of them, but to be fair, like, I don't know. Yeah, and I mean, is she wrong though? Is she wrong? But the biggest thing about like getting upset that a particular studio is adapting something is that I haven't watched a series from Gohans in a long time, and they do have a very distinct visual style, which honestly I feel like Right. That honestly, that would be the greatest trolling of like all time. If this happened, if Tokyo Babylon was just a surprise gotcha season 3 of Handshakers. Oh man, the Twitterverse would implode on itself. Anime Twitter would just like die. They would just would not know how to function, and that would be the greatest day in my life. I would have so much humor from that whole situation. But anyway, it's not about me because we know my thoughts on Clamp generally. But what I was saying is, I feel like if you just judge if you just preemptively judge an anime adaptation on their previous works, stuff they've previously put out, you risk judging unfairly a series before it's even come out. Like, as I said, I haven't watched a Gohan series in a long time. I think I watched first season of K, and I watched like 2 episodes of Capellion, whatever that show was, and I was bored and not interested. And I think that's the only shows of theirs that I've ever watched. But I feel like if you had said 5 years ago, well, maybe not 5 years ago, if you had said like in 2010 that your favorite series was being adapted by Studio Dean, you would cry, and everyone you knew would cry for you, because Studio Dean made very cheap looking series, and they were kind of regarded as bottom of the barrel studio. There wasn't too many things that they put out. Nothing in my mind from pre-2011 like jumps out. I may be getting my dates wrong, but nothing really jumps out as good from Studio Dean from the 2000s era. And then they got like surprisingly better with stuff like Dusk Maiden of Amnesia, Sankarea. Not that those were like brilliant shows, but the atmosphere was actually good, and they had a lot of like visual artistry and flair and stuff that was like cinema. Like it was nice. Like it looked good. It felt like a cool show that you wanted to watch. And then 5 years later, 2015, 2016, Studio Dean gave us the greatest anime of all time. Shogun Roku Rakugo Shinju, aka Descending Stories, which is the most beautiful piece of art I think I've ever watched in my entire life. And I mean, I'm not unbiased here. We know that I love Descending Stories. But if you had told anyone before that series came out that it was a Dean show, that nobody would believe you. And again, like as Teddy said, like I don't think anyone believed that Sankarea was a Dean show. It was like night and day to their typical stuff that they put out. And I'm not saying that Gohan's is going to have some miraculous change, but like, don't necessarily discount them. Their visual style is nice. It's just I feel like their writing is terrible. And if it's already, I mean, their CG integration, from what I've seen of like all of the clips that people have posted about Handshakers, is terrible. But if it's an adaptation of a pre-existing manga, like Tokyo Babylon is, and I guess like Capellion was as well, then I feel like it would do better than their original stuff, like Handshakers and its stealth sequel. And I didn't particularly like K, but that people like that, so maybe they're not all bad after all. I am going to eat this sour strap and then I'm going to talk about about the next series that I read this week. I can't really speak to Handshakers because I've literally never seen any of it aside from one clip someone posted on Twitter that had some really, really badly integrated CG chains. I think that's Handshakers. I don't know. I'm an old person now. I don't follow a lot of the anime that come out, and I certainly don't remember all of the really bad stuff from the last 5 years. So please inform me if I am misinformed and spouting nonsense, because I can't know everything. I'm sorry to say that I can't know everything. Yeah, these are yummy too. I do not eat a lot of candy, so I'm like really pacing myself. I'm like, oh my god, that's so sweet. It's delicious, but it's very sweet. I'm like, I kind of have to go to bed, but I'm still going to eat some of this stuff. I'm not going to eat all of it because, oh my god. Thank you everyone for like making me more informed about Handshakers. It just reinforces my initial gut feeling as to not watch it. Not that I was going to anyway, because it seemed like a really boring premise. And I'm glad that I seem to be on the right track when I'm shit talking these shows. Because I don't want to misconstrue or misrepresent the wonderful series that is Handshakers for the 0.3% of a person who enjoyed it. Didn't that show get a Funimation release? Somebody released it. I feel like it was Funimation, but I mean, they've put out worse trash. Let's be honest. And I'm going to eat another one of these sour straps, and I'm going to actually go into the next books, because, yes. So, after Cicada Man, the next thing that I read was Umineko When They Cry, episode 7, Requiem of the Golden Witch, which is the full title. So if you're not familiar, so there's 3 BS omnibuses of this series. This is actually not a series that I personally collect. This is a series that my sister collects. Well, actually, I say that. I buy it for my sister. She bought the first couple volumes and then just never got around to buying the rest. And every Christmas, birthday, whatever, I get some of these for her because she wants manga, but she kind of spends her money on other stuff. It's not a high priority for her, which is totally valid. But I actually want to read this series as well. So it's kind of a good motivator for me to get it whilst she is collecting it. So there's 3 of these. Look how they're so thick. They're such oh my god, such thick books. There's 2, oh my god, 3. This is the complete series. I think it's 9 or 10 volumes. Singles. So yeah, we have this cover which features the 2 new characters in this arc. So we have another Willard, and Leon, who is a mysterious additional new Oroshimiya. That's the family name. And these books always have like the additional covers in them that you're missing from the singles and color pages and that. And they are thick books. So if you're not familiar with what Umineko or also Higurashi, the When They Cry franchise is. So I talked about this a little bit with Ray on our podcast, Read Right to Left. We talked a little bit more about Higurashi in that episode, but Umineko is sort of the sister series to Higurashi. They don't really have anything to do with each other, but there's a couple characters that like represent or resemble other characters from Higurashi, and then they're both mystery series that you have to solve. They're trying to solve a mystery that has led to the deaths of whomever. Like in both series, it's to solve a mystery. So normally in Umineko, we have see how many of the covers here? Oh my gosh, where are you? Oh my gosh, Battler, where are you? How literally? Oh my god! This arc did not have Battler in it like at all. I mean, there's a little baby Battler. Boy, where are you? He's hiding out in the back there. That's his sister. This him, and those are his parents. So the premise is that in 1986, the extended Urashimiya family goes to their private island, Rokujima, to celebrate the patriarch, aka the grandfather's birthday, and to discuss family affairs. It's an annual thing that they do every year. And so we have the patriarch, aka the grandfather. We have his 4 children and their spouses, and then the various grandchildren. And one of those grandchildren is Battler. He's our main character. Normally he's our main character. He acts as the detective in most of these stories. And so he is trying to prevent the ghastly death of his entire family on a stormy night when there's no one coming in or out to this private island, in which the entire family, including himself, so he's solving his own murder, was mysteriously killed under very strange circumstances. And the only thing that kind of remained was this myth, this legend, and this story that the family had always told of the Golden Witch Beatrice, whom Beatrice was allegedly a actual person who gave the grandfather, bequeathed him an entire 10 tons of gold. And through that, he built up the family fortune, saved the family from ruin. And he named her Beatrice the Golden Witch because she literally gave him gold. And he loved her, and he's been obsessed with the occult ever since, trying to meet her again and all this weird stuff. And his family thinks he's crazy because, of course, he would be. And then obviously there's a big issue between the grandfather's children, so the parents and their spouses, of inheritance and who's taking over the family business, the family name, and what kind of slice of the pie each of the siblings and their respective families gets. Normally the siblings and their spouses are fighting amidst each other, but then the cousins, the grandchildren, are pretty normal. They're quite friendly with each other. We have George, who's the oldest. We have Jessica, who's the kind of first in line of the grandchildren because she is the daughter of the oldest son. And she's quite outspoken, kind of brash, tomboyish sort of girl. Then we have Battler. Well, actually, I think Battler is older than Jessica. Jessica's 16, Battler's 18, and George is 19. So yeah, George, Battler, our main character, who's a bit of an idiot, bit of a ladies' man, a bit of a lech, but deep down, you know, a good guy. He's not too bad. He's just, you know, bit of a jokester or whatever. Jessica, as I said, and then Maria is the youngest. She's a little girl. She believes in magic and witches, and she's the one throughout all of the different episodes, all of the different iterations of the story, is the closest to Beatrice and is, you know, very much her friend and believes in her and believes in magic. And she's sort of the catalyst to a lot of what goes on in many of these story arcs. So if you're not familiar with When They Cry and sort of the structure that they take, similarly to yes, I am here to inform you that George is in fact 19. 19, almost 20, and that's sort of a big thing because once he reaches 20, he's like, I will marry you, Shannon, who's like one of the maids, and he can do that because he is an adult and he doesn't have to get his parents' permission. But you are absolutely right in that he does dress like a middle-aged man. Trying to be the perfect scion, but, you know, some of the later arcs, the answer arcs, do dig into all of these characters' personalities quite a bit, and it's really interesting to actually find out more about these characters. So, like with Higurashi, there are 4 question episodes, and then there are 4 answer episodes. This is the third of the 4th, obviously, because 4 plus 4 is 8. So this is the penultimate story arc, and this is really the one where, with all of the answer arcs, because the question arcs obviously pose questions, they pose different scenarios and how these things happen, and the mystery kind of keeps toppling upon itself, and you're not able to solve these mysteries. That's the point, is that each type of solving that they do for the problems presented lead to failure. And so also the first 4, like the question story arcs are all focused with Battler, our main character, and Beatrice, the Golden Witch, and like this mental chess game trying to outwit the other. And Battler, as I said, not the brightest tool in the shed, but he does like actually have quite a good logical mind if he applies himself, trying to figure out this whole mystery, and if magic is real, and if witches are real, and if not, like how did they all die, and what's the mystery behind the family fortune, and all of these sorts of things. Meanwhile, we also have other characters. There's a family doctor who like visits the family very often because the grandpa's sick and elderly. He has to go see a doctor very often. We also have a lot of like servants, maids, and that show up a lot. Cannon, who I mentioned before, who George is romantically involved with, and Shannon. Cannon is her younger brother, whom Jessica has feelings for, and he's a bit more like standoffish compared to his sister. And some of the other like butler and stuff. So there's 17 people involved in this deserted island murder, and all of them died. And we know through the magic of magic and Beatrice's various things that she puts in place that there's no other mysterious 18th person. There's no like this, that, or whatever else. And the whole point for Battler, at least in the first story arcs, is trying to prove that magic doesn't exist, and fighting against the idea that it was a magical murder, right? Later, in the later story arcs, Battler isn't really the main character anymore. I mean, he's in the story, but usually the detective spot is held by somebody else. There is a detective called Erica in a couple of the volumes, and in this episode, these two are our detectives, Will and Leon. And Leon has a much closer connection to this whole scenario than may be previously thought, despite this being the first time he shows up in the series. This series gets wild. Like, it goes full hog on the magic and like demons and all this illogical stuff, trying to find a logical reason, and sticking very strongly to the rules of like what is true, mystery solving, those sorts of things. They're fun. Like, I like Ryushiki's 07 stuff. Like, I really enjoy Higurashi. I really enjoy Umineko. This did get a partial anime adaptation, the first 4 arcs, but it never got the answer arcs animated, so I don't inherently recommend the anime. I would recommend more so the visual novel or the manga, which is a more complete way, like if you actually want to know how the story ends. But this particular arc, we actually find out like what the deal is, the background between the grandpa and Beatrice, and who is like, how did certain family members meet Beatrice several decades later, and where this gold came from, and what this whole like why this island, what's going on. So yeah, like, actually, obviously being the second to last of the stories, we're getting at terrible if they didn't give you any answers to try and puzzle out throughout the series. And so we are finally like getting some conclusive background, which obviously leads to more logical conclusions, which leads to actually figuring out what the hell happened on that stormy night in 1986. But yeah, so yeah. Yeah, Will Wright is a mage hunter, so he's like related to killing magical people. And then I don't know, like it's wild. It's wild, but I do actually really like Umineko. It's a little bit more fantastical and a little bit more like really deep dive into this magical like aspect of it compared to Higurashi, which was, I mean, they're both horror. This is just a bit more of a supernatural horror, or fantastical horror, whereas Higurashi was much more like small town Japanese high tension horror of like, oh god. But and that one feels a little bit more grounded in reality. There's aspects of like, oh, there's a local curse, and you know, we later meet a literal god character. But it never had like just straight up magic, or what was perceived as magic necessarily, in the same sense that Umineko did from the get-go. So if you're not into like the magical aspect, then maybe give Umineko a miss, but I would encourage you to read Higurashi. If you liked Higurashi, check out Umineko. They're both good. But yeah, so I read that. It was good. I liked it. And then finally is the last of the digital manga that I read, and I was reading it like literally 10 minutes before I jumped on here. I caught up and I yelled because, oh my god. Oh my goodness. This is another series which I think a lot of people know, because especially as an anime right now, quite a popular anime, pretty solid adaptation. I've only seen one episode, so I can't attest to how it's doing now. But okay, so I read Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 64 to 127, which is basically half of the series. I had read I'd read up to chapter 15 ages ago, like when those chapters were first being posted on Shonen Jump. So, for a long time, we had just the first 3 chapters or the first 5 chapters, and then a big gap, and then the most recent chapters, which was like 50 or 40, 50 something. And that was when they were like actually publishing it week to week. And then every time there'd be a new volume out, they would add those chapters, like I said they're doing with Moriarty, and they do with a lot of series, just to fill the gap. And then at some point, they caught up. I think they just all at once posted the entire backlog, rather than wait a long time to fill the gap like they did with Haikyuu. And they didn't really fill the gap until right when it was ending, or right just after it finished. I don't know. There was a long time where there was still missing chapters in between what was currently coming out and what was available in English. So people had read like up to chapter 90, but then they couldn't read the new stuff because there's still like 5 chapters just in the middle that weren't there. And you could read scans, but if you're trying to be good, don't read scans. These are really yummy. These ones are really yummy. But, so, yeah. So I read the first, like, volume-ish, and it was fine. Like, it was like, okay, that's a solid start to a jump shonen. Like, I wasn't in love with it immediately, but I found, Itadori, that's the main character. Like, he was pretty likable. I mean, I feel that way about most Jump protagonists. Like, seems like a nice guy. You know, seems like a hero you'd want for your series. And it had like a real horror tone to it. It wasn't quite that overt yet, but you know, it had creepy curse monsters, and he ate a finger, and it was like kind of weird and gross and wacky. But like I wasn't in love with it. I was like, okay, that was fun. But and then I read like more chapters. I read up to like 15 or so when they were posting it, and then I just left it. I just left it for a while. It wasn't something that like had grabbed my attention that much. But then they announced the anime, and I was like, I'll read more of this, because like the anime adaptation looked like it was gonna look good, at least. Like Mappa's doing a great job with animating it. It looks lovely, if nothing else. It's popular. Like a lot of people have very positive things to say about it. And I mean, I didn't hate it, and it sometimes does take a while for me to warm to Jump series. We know this. This is not unusual. So I started reading it, and I read up to chapter 60, which was several arcs. Because the early stuff, a lot of the arcs are quite short. And man, whoa, they really crank the horror aspect up to 11. If you're not a fan of body horror, if you're not a fan of like gross, there's a lot of violence. Lots of violence, lots of gore, and a lot of body horror. Humans literally being turned into gross monsters in just like really viscerally horrible ways. And for me, that's cool as hell. Like that that got my attention, and it hit like the emotional aspect of that and how it affects the protagonist was done really well. The side characters really came into their own, which for the first couple volumes I wasn't too interested in the side characters. Nomura, she's great. And I don't remember his last name, but Megumi, like the other main character, the rival character or whatever, he's like, his story is pretty interesting. But so I read like several chapters, as I said, up to 63, 62, 63. And I had read several of the arcs, and I was just getting into a new arc, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna stop here just because, not for any particular reason. I was just like, oh, well, I need to mix it up. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to come back to this. And then it took me, I just didn't get back to it immediately. And then it, it ended up being several weeks later. And then this week I was like, I need something to read, and I want something spooky-ish. It's Halloween. I should probably catch up with Jujutsu Kaisen because, one, I've seen a lot of people screaming about the recent chapters on Twitter. And two, I do actually, like, I was enjoying it, and I did think it was getting better. And then so I read the next arc, which I, like, it was only 10 or 12 chapters. They were short, which was backstory for Gojo, who's like the mentor character, who is cool as hell. Like, I know he's the Kakashi of this series, and everybody loved Kakashi. He's way cooler than Kakashi. Like, I don't have nostalgia for Kakashi, but I have read Naruto, and he is, one, cooler than Kakashi, two, a better mentor than Kakashi, three, like, he kind of is definitely I don't know, he serves that role, but ooh, some stuff's been happening with him in the current arc. I mean, that is a understatement to say the least. But but it was really good. It was really good. Things you hit around like chapter 80 something. Hit chapter 80, and a new arc started called the Shibuya Incident, and it's brilliant. It was brilliant for me because that whole arc was set on Halloween night in Shibuya. Like, everyone's in Halloween costumes. Like, oh my god, this is perfect. It's Halloween. This is set in Halloween. Today is Halloween. This is like a really, like, can get damn freaky horror action. This is great. This is exactly what I want to read. And then I realized the Shibuya Incident is an ongoing arc. It's still going on, and it is, as of right now, probably a third of the entire run of the whole series. Like, chapter 80-ish is when it starts, and 20-something, 27 is still going on. That makes it like 4 or 5 times longer than all of the other arcs combined. So much is happening. And again, like, and it's good because it's well balanced between like all of the different characters and all of the bits of story that's been introduced, all the backstories and all of these different characters that have been introduced in the series thus far are now being reincorporated, and you as a reader are like, oh my god, all this stuff is it's pretty cool. Like, I know that sometimes, like, I get it. Jump stuff, not for everyone. It's certainly, like, I don't ever think that most of Jump is high art, but I do enjoy, and what I'm reading of it, at least, like, I do enjoy a lot of Jump. And Jujutsu Kaisen, like it took a while. It did take me like a year-ish to read, to like finally click with me. But oh, it was a good one. It was really, really, really good. And now I am caught up like the rest of everyone else. And I'm kind of stressed because a lot of stuff has been happening. And yeah, again, like if you're really into, like if you're into Chainsaw Man, it's not as how do I say this? It's not as bleak as Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man is just like crazy. And I love Chainsaw Man, but like that is violence just personified, and wacky, bizarre, like gross everything. It has a message which gets hidden under like 15 layers of gore and nudity and just the most obscene stuff you could push into Jump, but it's great. Jujutsu Kaisen is not quite that. It's a little bit more polished. It's a little bit more as expected of the magazine, but it has some pretty creepy monsters. It has some very, very deadly, straight up murdering a whole bunch of actual humans, actual civilian humans, and not just like, oh, they got shot, or like, oh, they died in the background because of evil people plotting things. No. You see just straight up people living their lives, getting their heads sliced in two, and all the viscera and all the everything it comes with that just splattered around. And I mean, it's a lot for a Jump title. And it's counterbalanced because it does have like a good sense of humor. It does have very likable protagonists who are mainly likable kids and their mentors. And the villains are like very obviously villains. They're a little bit cartoonishly evil, as every good Jump villain is. But I don't know. There's something like actually pretty terrifying about Jujutsu Kaisen. And if you're looking for a spooky read this October, even though it is literally the last day of October, give it a shot. Like, if you have the Jump subscription anyway, you might as well give it a try. It doesn't cost you anything except for what your subscription costs. And if you're reading other stuff in Jump, then that's, I mean, you're paying for it anyway, so why not? But ooh, I am really excited to actually read more of it now, because catching up was, I don't know if it was a mistake, but it's always kind of sad when I catch up with the title, because then you gotta wait like everyone else. So yeah. But that's it. That's everything that I read for this week. Not actually a huge amount of different titles, but all spooky. Coincidentally as well. Like, I didn't plan that at all. Well, hopefully something that was kind of interesting. And at least it was in theme with Halloween, with the spookiness, with my stay-at-home trick-or-treating with wine. So, yeah. I hope everyone does have a good Halloween, even if you are being good and staying home and socially distancing. You can celebrate at home, like I did. Although I don't have to actually socially distance because we don't have coronavirus here anymore. But, well, they say that. We have, like, I don't know, 1 or 2 cases. Something. So, But we don't celebrate Halloween here anyway, so it's not even, I'm not even missing anything. No Australians are even doing anything tonight. So I have to celebrate on my own. Well, on my own with you guys. I love you guys. But I'm taking the opportunity to have the Halloween dress up and trick-or-treating candy eating that I never had is in my childhood, and talking about a couple really fun, exciting, cool little comics. Some more popular and well known than others. Some that I can talk maybe a bit more on than others, because I don't like with Umineko and also with Jujutsu Kaisen. Like I don't actually want to talk necessarily about the events of what was happening in them, because if you are wanting to read them, I don't want to spoil them. Moriarty the Patriot, I spoiled the first chapter, but it's literally the first chapter. That's no spoiler. Like, I don't think that's a spoiler. But yeah, so I am finished now. I hope everyone has a good Halloween or end of October, however you celebrate it. It is only 1 hour. Well, I'm for some of you people who may be watching, if you're in the future, if you're on the other side of the country, if you're in Japan, then it's already November. It is less than an hour till November on this for me. And the rest of you guys have the whole rest of the day. So make it spooky, make it count, but in a socially distanced and responsible way. Eat a candy bar or something to get you in the spooky season mood. I don't really know what else you do for Halloween. But thank you guys so much for watching, for hanging out with me. I hope you liked my costume. It was fun to dress up and to like put some effort in and talk about some books, and let me know your thoughts on anything that I read. If you loved it, if you hated it, that's all good. I love getting your comments regardless. Thank you as always to everyone who jumped in on the stream. I really appreciate it, as you guys know. And it's so wonderful seeing familiar faces every single week. I know it's a little bit of an odd time for some people, but this is sort of the most convenient, I think, for most people who watch regularly, including myself. Not that I'm watching, I'm creating, but you know what I mean. This is the issue, living on the other side of the world. But thank you. Happy Halloween to everyone. Thank you, Tay. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Zen, for popping in. And thank you, everyone else, both in the chat right now and who will be watching this in the future. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye till then.